the 1st of May, and thanks for tuning in to Business Daily. I'm Ji-yoon in Seoul. Let's get started with a glimpse of today's highlights. Korea's exports are on a tear thanks to strong demand for key export items, and this momentum is expected to stay robust this month as well. A growing number of economists are saying that automation seems to be a bigger threat to Americans when it comes to jobs than China and Mexico. These stories and more coming right up. It looks like the country's exports are back on track. Strong shipments of key items helped drive up momentum for export growth last month, a trend that's expected to continue into May. Our Kim Min-ji starts us off.
Korea's exports stayed on an upward trajectory last month. The Trade Ministry says outbound shipments rose more than 24% on year in April to $51 billion. It's the second largest export figure ever and the fourth consecutive month of double-digit growth.
Korea's exports last month grew at the fastest pace since August 2011. April's figure indicates that the country's exports are on the road to recovery. Key export items such as chips and semiconductors have been doing well.
In fact, 9 out of 13 key export items posted positive growth. The country exported a total of 24 ships for a return of over $7.1 billion, the highest export value on record. Outbound shipments of semiconductors and flat panel displays have also been on an upward trend thanks to rising prices and demand. On top of that, exports to major markets also rose last month. In particular, shipments to the European Union rebounded in April to post an all-time high. Imports also continued to rise, jumping nearly 17% on year to $37.8 billion in April. With that, the trade balance came to $13.3 billion, extending the surplus streak for a 63rd straight month.
Although there was a base effect because Korea's exports declined so much early last year, there has been a general pickup in volume, thanks to a recovery in the global economy and oil prices. Although the pace of growth may slow in the latter half of the year, exports aren't expected to return to negative territory.
But there are downside risks that need to be closely monitored so as not to dent the current growth momentum. A possible renegotiation to the Korea-US FTA and China's unofficial sanctions in retaliation against the THAAD deployment could create an unfavorable environment for Korea going forward. That's why experts stress the need for Korea to reduce its dependence on the two global powers and change its trade structure by diversifying its trading partners and products to secure greater stability. Kim Min-ji, Business Daily.
Tens of thousands of Korean workers are taking to the streets this afternoon for Labor Day rallies, joining workers across the globe for International Workers' Day demonstrations. The Korean Confederation of Trade Unions, one of the country's largest umbrella labor groups, is leading demonstrations in 15 cities across the country, including Seoul. An estimated 30,000 workers are expected to participate, and the unions want companies to stop hiring irregular and temporary workers and provide greater protection for workers' rights. They're also demanding a higher minimum wage and an end to hereditary succession at conglomerates. April reports show a diverging trend between Japan and China's manufacturing sectors. Japan's Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index grew to 52.7, above the benchmark 50, indicating an expansion. Its index for new export orders also picked up on month due to rising demand from markets in Southeast Asia. Industrial output did fall 2% in March, but robust orders last month are expected to keep growth momentum going. Now, over in China, the official PMI dropped to a 6-month low of 51.2 last month, although it stayed in expansionary territory. A sharp decline in iron ore and steel prices are raising concerns about a slowdown in growth. First quarter growth came in at a better than expected 6.9%, but there are worries this will slow as authorities look to cool the property market and crack down on shadow banking with tighter financial regulations. Although the markets are closed today here in Korea for 2 more days of the week, there are a lot of events that are expected to affect future movements. We're now joined by our markets contributor Choi Jin-seok to talk about overall stock market performance and upcoming market events. Hello, Jin-seok.
Great to be here.
All right, so since the Korean market is closed today, I think it's a good time for us to look at how the Kospi has been doing throughout this year, so far this year, compared to other global markets.
Right. The Kospi market has been doing very well this year. The index has risen by 8.8% so far this year, and it is just below record levels. There have been ups and downs throughout the year, of course, but Kospi performance has been very strong over the last 2 months. By sector, 12 industries, including technology, construction, and communications have enjoyed a rally, while 6 sectors, including machinery and transportation, have performed weakly. Global equity markets as a whole have been showing strong performance so far this year, too. 40 major markets have enjoyed a more than 10% rally over the last 4 months. Among countries, Korea ranks 14th when it comes to market performance. The stock market in Venezuela has skyrocketed by 93% this year, posting its best record, followed by Argentina and Turkey. Since the Korean market is still underperforming global markets, expectations for a further rally are rising.
Now, let's take a look at market events in the near term. We have a lot of important economic data coming from the U.S., right?
Right. On Monday, local time, personal income and spending will be reported. The Federal Reserve is closely watching the income data because wage growth is a very important indicator for the health of the U.S. labor market. We'll have job numbers from the U.S. too. ADP job gains reported on Wednesday will provide a brief picture of employment in the private sector. Friday's Labor Department employment report is the most important data for this week. Experts think the U.S. labor market created around 185,000 jobs last month, and Monday's ISM Manufacturing Index is considered one of the most important economic indicators as well. The May FOMC meeting held by the U.S. Fed is not attracting much attention from investors. The reason is that there will be no press conference by Fed Chair Janet Yellen, and the results of the committee are already widely expected. Instead, we'll have a lot of Fed officials who will deliver speeches. The list includes Chair Yellen and Vice Chair Stanley Fischer and many other regional bank presidents.
Now, we just talked about good performance by global equity markets, but there must be some markets that have been underperforming.
Right. The Chinese equity market would be a good example. The Shanghai Composite Index has risen by only 1.6% this year, and the index plummeted by 2% in April, recording the worst monthly performance. Due to concerns over more regulations against the country's financial market, the Shanghai market once fell by 1.3% last Monday as well. Experts say the Chinese stock market is likely to be stuck in consolidation, at least in the near term. There are not a lot of factors that could lift the market, and regulatory and geopolitical risks are still affecting sentiment. Economic indicators have been disappointing too. The country's manufacturing PMI fell by a large margin, and investors hope this week's Caixin manufacturing PMI will offer a better picture.
Now, the U.S. earnings season is in full swing. What are the results on that so far?
According to market research firm FactSet, with 58% of the companies in the S&P 500 reporting actual results for Q1, 77% have beat the mean earnings per share estimate, and 68% have beat the mean sales estimate. The blended earnings growth rate for the S&P 500 is projected to be 12.5%. And if that is the case for the quarter, it will mark the highest year-over-year earnings growth for the index since Q3 of 2011. By sector, financial companies have enjoyed a 18% growth in their Q1 profits. Materials and technology firms have outperformed the entire S&P 500 when it comes to earnings growth as well. Telecom services is the only sector that didn't see growth in earnings.
And many companies will unveil their quarterly results this week. And of course, Apple is drawing a lot of attention from investors, right?
Exactly. Apple will report Q1 earnings on Tuesday local time, and the company is considered the main event of this earnings season. Expectations are rosy too. Analysts expect Apple to report profit of $10.64 billion or $2.02 per share, up from $1.9 in the year earlier period, according to FactSet. Revenue from the iPhone is projected to increase by 4.3% after gaining 5.3% in the holiday quarter. Since many companies in Korea are doing business with Apple, the results by the company are expected to have an impact on the domestic market too. Other than Apple, we'll have earnings reports from Facebook and Tesla this week.
All right, thank you so much for that today.
Thank you.
Changes seen in the U.S. job market have been under scrutiny, especially with the presidential election being held last year. Economists have said that the real threat to U.S. jobs is automation, not Mexico or China. Our Elliot Kim has more on transformations on the employment front and how this will affect future jobs.
Take a look at this abandoned auto parts plant. It used to employ thousands. Now it's a symbol of the fading fortunes of the working class in America. Images like these are what U.S. President Donald Trump used in his successful bid for the top office in 2016. Voters, like those who used to work at this plant, were spurred on by Trump's promises, with 54% of the county surrounding the abandoned plant voting for the current president. But not all agree on the cause of job losses. While Trump often points at companies moving jobs abroad, economists say the driving force behind it is automation. As the world enters what many are calling the fourth industrial revolution, one of the top concerns is how automation will change the job landscape. Michael Hicks, an economics professor at Ball State University, studied the impact of automation on U.S. jobs from 2000 to 2010.
I mean, our study was fairly clear, I think, as others are, that trade accounts for some manufacturing job losses, but the majority of those losses of manufacturing jobs are due to automation and productivity in general.
He cited trade at 12% of job losses and automation at 88%. In March, the consulting firm PricewaterhouseCoopers estimated that 4 out of 10 U.S. jobs could be lost to automation by as early as the 2030s. Despite the initial losses, economists say automation has historically proven itself to be a good thing. They say while lower skill, lower wage workers suffer in the short term, it produces long-term boosts to output and new higher skill, higher wage jobs.
It keeps production here. And that production does all kinds of other things. It demands power, it demands transportation. So while we've lost 7.5 million manufacturing jobs since peak employment in the late 1970s, we've gained closer to 10 million logistics jobs.
In this same vein, economists say automation will help keep work in the U.S. despite fears of robots replacing humans. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
Korea's domestic beer giants continue their struggle to defend their market share against imports and craft beers that are growing in popularity. And with the government set to loosen restrictions, the uphill climb for them is looking to be steeper. Our Eunice Kim has the story.
A common sight at 24-hour marts these days are ads like these. 4 cans of imported beer for 10,000 won, or just under $9. But it's more than the price tag that's driving consumers to reach for an Asahi or a Stella over a local Max or a Cass. And reaching for them, they are. Recent figures from Korea Customs Service show beer imports by volume last year jumped by 30% year over year, coming to over 220,000 tons. In terms of value, companies imported some $181 million worth of overseas brews, a jump over 60% in a 2-year period. Not just 24-hour marts, but also big box supermarkets like E-Mart are stocking their shelves with imported beers. Both types of retailers say these imports make up roughly half of their overall beer sales, as factories pumping out made-in-Korea brews ease to half operation. And then there's the budding domestic craft beer market. With regulations eased ahead of the 2002 World Cup, microbreweries began popping up with flavors that superseded those mass-produced by the likes of Haichillo and Obi. Currently, their market share only makes up 0.5%, but that's expected to expand dramatically to 10% in 8 years, as the government further eases distribution rules. As far as sales are concerned, craft beer snatched up more than $17 million in 2014, according to industry estimates. On the other hand, top domestic breweries are struggling to put out new ideas as they point to stricter regulations and a 30% higher alcohol tax as reasons their hands are tied, forcing them to raise prices on their increasingly less popular offerings. Meanwhile, the government is looking to the beer market as a growth area, as more people choose to drink in the privacy of their homes in place of after-work drinking sessions that have reduced with the prolonged economic downturn. As such, the government is considering new rules that would lower the entry barrier for the distribution of imported and craft beers, handing more headaches to the domestic beer conglomerates. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
For the first time here in Korea, renewable energy has exceeded 5% of the total energy output. A recent report from Korea Energy Corporation showed that renewable energy took up 6.6% of total output in 2015, an increase from just under 5% the previous year. The growth is largely attributed to the 2012 Renewable Portfolio Standards, which required companies to hold a production capacity of over 500 megawatts to maintain a mandatory level of renewable energy output. Although the ratio has increased, critics are concerned that production using imported biofuels and waste are included in the calculations. While energy from waste isn't considered renewable under international standards, it is under Korean standards. In the case of biofuel imports, it's seen as going against the underlying goal of reusing resources at home to produce power. Korea is seeing steady growth in the area of smart homes, with the local institution projecting the industry will reach up to about $20 billion in 2 years' time. Now, in order to create a strong foundation for this new ecosystem, leading tech, communication firms, and builders have teamed up. Our Lee Joo-young has more.
This is an exhibition of Korea Land and Housing Corporation's Smart House. At first glance, it looks like any other home, but it's actually filled with smart appliances connected to a network that allows them to be controlled remotely. The home automatically locks the gas valve if danger is detected, and the rice cooker starts cooking just with a touch of a smartphone. Not only that, users can control both the air conditioner and lights with voice command.
We believe IoT can offer a healthier, more convenient, and safer life while conserving energy. It can also strengthen the nation's competitiveness.
This home is the result of collaboration among large corporations like Samsung and LG Electronics, along with mobile service providers and large construction companies, all with the goal of nurturing the smart home industry. The alliance is expected to promote the exchange of related technologies, development of joint business models, and standardization of regulations for further expansion in this field. It stems from this recognition that combined efforts are needed to build up Korea's ecosystem for smart homes. Recently, the budding market has been gaining more attention around the world, emerging as a new future growth engine, showing an average 18% growth every year. Lee Joo-young, Business Daily.
Recent technological advances are opening the door to a fuller life for people with physical disabilities. And we take a look at the latest digital devices that offer convenience to the disabled and help them to better communicate with the world.
The Blind is a quartet of visually impaired musicians. Blind people usually rely on Braille to communicate, but what if they want to check text messages on their smartphones? A Braille smartwatch serves as eye for the blind and visually impaired.
Using haptic touch to control a smart device was a great experience. I was able to access it without having to pull out my smartphone and activate the voice feature. All I needed to do was to hold up my wrist and place my fingers on the device. It was very convenient.
The visually impaired had to turn to Braille note takers in order to use digital devices. But these electronic devices weighed more than 2 kilograms and carried a hefty price tag of thousands of dollars, which made them inaccessible to many. The company's CEO, Kim Joo-yoon, developed a smartwatch for the blind to address the shortcomings of existing products.
Someone was born blind, but someone became blind like 70, 45, 30. Everyone was different stage. And everyone was different reason not to have those expensive devices, not to learn reading. So we wanted to simplify this, and that's why we made that watch.
The 24 rounded pins embedded in the face of the watch move up and down to display the time or text in Braille. The watch uses an actuator powered by magnets and electric signals. It weighs 1/20th of electronic Braille note takers and costs 1/10 the price. The sleek watch had more than 150,000 customers lined up before the release, including music legend Stevie Wonder and star tenor Andrea Bocelli.
All the good feedbacks came from affordable price, and the design is good, and it doesn't feel like a assistive device. So it's all about our directions, and like specific things we get a lot of better feedback, but we are turned into the good feedbacks.
Among 285 million blind people around the world, an astounding 90% are Braille illiterate. The company looks to launch other digital devices, including a Braille learning tablet, to help them express their ideas and communicate with others. Emerging technologies are opening up doors of opportunity for the disabled. 3D printing, which is hailed by many as a fourth industrial revolution, is an enabler of assistive devices for people with disabilities. This Korean 3D printing company specializes in the production of 3D printed prosthetic hands for amputees.
I started this project after reading a story on the online community for 3D printing I was a part of. It was posted by an amputee who was the same age as myself and lost both hands. I wanted to make them affordable and turn the idea into a commercial project.
3D printing, which uses computer-generated designs to build 3D objects, can create customized prosthetic hands for those born without hands or people who have lost hands in accidents. Made of low-cost plastics, 3D printed prosthetic hands come at an affordable price.
Our first priority was the affordable price. Also, the device had to be lightweight and convenient so that those missing both hands could charge, wear, and store it on their own. Existing prosthetic hands are designed for use by those who have some hand function or who have someone to help them wear the prosthesis. We spent much time developing an interface that allows an amputee missing both hands to easily wear the prosthesis.
How are these 3D printed prosthetics received by actual users? Chun Seung-yeon began using 3D printed hands from 5 months ago. She says these are a noticeable difference from existing prosthetics in several aspects.
I like that I can wear the prosthesis by myself. It also charges fast and it is lightweight. Existing prostheses were heavy, so they put a lot of pressure on the shoulder, but this one is light.
The artificial hands fall short of the dexterity that natural hands offer, but these are still useful to perform everyday activities.
I use a prosthetic hand when I write, cook, hold a tool, or hold a comb to groom my dog.
The company is expected to supply 500 pairs of prosthetic hands to help amputees in the Middle East. It also plans to continue to upgrade its technology.
Our products are designed for use by those missing the arm from the elbow down, but there are various types of limb loss. There are amputations at the level of the shoulder, upper arm, elbow, and hand. We are developing a variety of prostheses that can cater to different cases.
Technological innovation is providing a new window of possibilities for people with physical disabilities. We look forward to seeing what the future holds for human-centric technological innovation.
And that wraps it up for today. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.